Hey everybody, What's It Fox Gaming here. So today I wanted to have a look at the Glory Daze, the named P416 that gives us perfect near-sighted, receive 100% stability at the cost of 35% optimal range. So the standard version of this is 80% stability while still losing the same 35% optimal range. I've had a few requests on some previous AR build videos to have a look at this in action, so I thought it was time to put it together. And I know the P416 has been a very popular AR since pretty much day one. I know it was meta for a while. I don't really play much in year one, but I appreciate that there is a lot of love for the P416 and the Glory Daze out there, particularly on the console community where sometimes things like additional stability and accuracy can really help, us console players' gameplay. So yeah, I thought it was time for me to dust it off. I got this God roll about a month ago now, and I always knew I wanted to review it, so I kept it in my stash and actually completely forgot about it until going through my comments this morning. I was like, yeah, okay, it's time to do it, and found this gem of a triple God roll here. So luckily, this has the best attribute you can get on any weapon in the game, which is damage to targets out of cover. This is just simply stronger than pretty much anything else you can put here, to be honest. Damage to armor, headshot damage. It's just a really good attribute. So yeah, I'm very happy with this roll. So what I've done is I've just factored this into a very standard AR build. We're looking at Unbreakable and Vigilance. So, these two are very, very popular for AR talents at the moment in Conflict in the Dark Zone. Companion is a great alternative, and Spotter would work really well on this as well, as it does indeed have that long underbarrel rail that you would need. I decided to go for just a pure crit build today, just a pure damage build, because I want to see how this weapon performs, as for me, the biggest problem with it is going to be its range. So if you go further down into the stats here, you can see that the accuracy is kind of midway, which, for this archetype is pretty good. It is a pretty accurate weapon, but the stability, of course, is sky high. So that means that the crosshair, the dot right in the center of my crosshair, isn't going to deviate too much from the center screen at all. It also means that my recoil pattern is going to be very stable and mostly vertical. So in theory, this should be able to laser people's heads off. But of course, AR builds always perform better at range, because if you are too close, you then come into range of a Lady Death Intimidate user. And realistically, you're not going to win that fight with this kind of build unless you get the first sort of shots on and your shield kind of saves you from their SMG. So if you look at the damage drop off there, you see that it's around about 15 to 20 meters. For comparison, actually, let's have a quick look at the difference here. Almost identical to a Lady Death. So this has been a big concern of mine with this weapon, and this is why I've previously not used this. I've just tried to find weapons that already have very good base stability and accuracy, and you all know my love for the FAL and the carbine. The reason that I love those two weapons so much, and the reason that I encourage all of you to try them out in your main AR builds, both PvP and PvE, is they both have great base damage for their RPM, and they have incredibly good handling stats. So, you find that you don't need to worry about talents like nearsighted, because they already have great stability. And you can then just factor in a damage talent. So if we look at something like the carbine here, this thing doesn't really kick at all. It has superb accuracy, as you can see from that green bar there. And of course, the damage drop-off is 30 meters, like it is for most ARs, not 15. So this for me will be a better choice. And it's the same thing. I mean, if you look at this file, look at that damage drop off. So the carbine kind of loses all of its bullet damage at around about, 60 meters, something like that, maybe 70. Look at the file. See that orange line there? The damage drop off starts at about 35 meters, and it continually does damage right up to 100 meters, albeit, low amounts of damage. So, that's why I like the FAL so much, because it performs well at all ranges. And obviously, if you look on the right hand side, we not only our damage drop off not only starts at 15 to 20 meters, but by the time we get to about 35 to 40 meters, it disappears entirely. So this is a very close range weapon. I'm quite curious to see how this performs. Let's test out first of all the DPS difference. So what I wanted to do, this is a 750 RPM, so very much kind of, I don't want to say the lower end, but there are more kind of 790s and 800s, 850s and 900s than there are the lower amounts. So it kind of is, but realistically it's actually kind of in the middle. So it's a 750 RPM, which is the same as the Eagle Bearer. Now the Eagle Bearer on this particular build gives me 107.1k damage. That's basically the per bullet damage before like crits and damage to targets that are covering all the other things. That's kind of like your base damage from all the additive bonuses. If we then look at the Glory Daze, it's 99.3k, so it's quite clearly lower. and it has lower range. So what we really need to do is focus on headshots with this build, you know, because we're losing damage and range, so we need to make sure we're really hitting our shots. Luckily the talent makes that very easy for us. So what I want to do is see how severe the damage drop off is. Now I'm thinking that at close range this is going to do as much damage as an Eagle Bearer, because it has damage to targets out of cover already rolled, and the Eagle Bearer has headshot damage. So what I'm going to do is test this on body shots against a named target in a heroic, that's not heroic at all, there we go, in a heroic shooting range. So let's get this onto named. Not that it really makes a difference, as long as it's got armor it's going to be the same. But okay, so what we'll do is we'll start with the Glory Daze. So let's get a crit damage. So 400k. 400, 876 is our damage. We're just going to say 400k because it's easier. We're now going to switch to Eagle Bear at the same range. 403k. So as I suspected, the actual difference in damage close range is hardly any, which when you think about it is really good, because if you don't know, the Eagle Bearer is technically speaking one of the highest damaging ARs in the game. Certainly for its RPM it does way more damage than, you know, the 750s, so it is a really powerful weapon. But of course this is spec'd into headshot damage and has a tenacity perk. So let's have a look at headshot damage. 574. We'll change to this with the damage to targets out of cover. 558, so that's where the difference starts to really come in there. 574 to 558. I know that this is PvE numbers and PvP is less than half of that, so the gap will technically be smaller, but for two rifles or ARs that fire at exactly the same rate of fire, you know, I do feel that we might be at a slight disadvantage. But certainly at our body shot range we are at a big disadvantage. Let's move it to outside of its optimal range. So we're still on the Glory Daze, as you can see in my hand here. Let's get a crit shot. 369k. Switch to the Eagle Bearer, same RPM, 403k. So because we're still within the optimal range of the Eagle Bearer, you know, that isn't that far away in my opinion. I would happily shoot someone at that distance in conflict or dark zone. I wouldn't feel the need to get closer, but you need to treat this like a Lady D. Now before we start you know, a game, what we'll do now is have a look at the AR pattern, excuse me, the recoil pattern, and then we'll load into a conflict game. So I'm not going to control my right analog stick at all here. I'm just going to aim down sights and press the right trigger to fire and see the natural recoil pattern of both weapons. To start with, we are on the Glory Daze. Now I've got to be honest, that is ridiculous. Look at that gap, that's tiny. So I didn't control my right analog stick at all there. Now let's do exactly the same thing. So I'm going to start in the same place on the wall. Again, no control. So now we're starting to see the strengths of the Glory Daze. So that versus that thing that went up right up into the wires here. Yeah, so the good news is that even though we're taking, or we're doing less damage at range, in theory we should be hitting more headshots, and that might just equate to the same or more damage. So I'm quite curious to see how this plays out, you know, in a live game, because I mean that is ridiculous. If I don't have to worry about moving at all, I can just fire into someone's head, not worry about the recoil control. In theory, more of my shots would land. And I have said this in quite a few of my previous videos. Sometimes, and actually more often than not, weapon usability, so its handling stats, can often actually give you higher damage numbers than a similar weapon with poor handling but high damage. So sometimes having a damage talent isn't the best idea, and a really good example of this was my braced build with a couple of different weapons, but namely the Pestilence. I was achieving so much more damage by running braced with Pestilence in all of my PvE content for like duo and trio heroic missions than I was running a glass cannon build, because I would spend way more time in cover trying to heal up, way more time waiting for my res hive to pick me up. The recoil of the gun was awful, I was reloading more of the time, and all of this equates to less damage, because all of those times you are not doing damage if you're taking 3 seconds to reload instead of 1. So weapon handling is a fantastic stat, you know, as of TU10 and onwards, and I really do think that people should factor it in more into their builds. It's very, very easy to do what I call an on-paper build. So that's a build that on paper looks amazing because you've maxed every part of your crit chance and your damage and everything looks amazing, but then you come to use the weapon that best fits into that build, which is one that usually gives you the highest amount of crit chance and damage. And it's terrible. It'll be like an AKM with minimal handling, or an LMG, or just an AR or SMG that doesn't have very good handling, and as a result you're not actually achieving that on paper quality build. And then if you just were to throw in one talent that gives you increased handling or increased reload or better stability, or factor some weapon handling in some of your rolls instead of crit damage, you'll actually find that your damage goes up. And I know that sounds crazy, and this is maybe only for console users, but yeah, I do understand why this weapon is very popular. I do totally get it, because, well, you saw the difference in recoil pattern. That was insane. The build that I'm using today is a very atypical build. It's just a 2 blue 4 red build. You know, I'm not going to go too much into the build today, but it's a very well rolled build basically. So I tend to use this as like a base build to test all of my ARs, because I've been going through quite a lot in the last few weeks. So I'll quickly give you a glance at the start of the game. Probably should have done it before we loaded in really, but and then what we'll do is we'll get into some gameplay. I've just got to remember that shooting at range is going to be really bad for this gun, which is why I've gone for the high reds. So 4 reds, 2 blues. I've gone for 3 Providence, 1 Fenris, Contractors and Foxes, and my stats are 59% critical hit chance and 153 damage with 99.5 headshot damage, which is pretty good to be fair. As you know, I've got Unbreakable and Vigilance. I might consider running this, or what I may suggest is to run this with Companion, because you know, you're not going to be shooting from too far out like you are other builds or other weapons, such as the FAL, for example. The FAL is the best backline damage dealing AR in the game. It absolutely is. With this, you don't have that luxury, so Vigilance might not be the best choice here. Ooh, let's get out of there. I didn't realise he'd see me. Where am I getting shot from? I'm so confused. What? Where are these bullets coming from? This guy's a very hidey boy. I'm gonna go up top here. I'm still pulsed after all this time. He clearly has a spotter build. Ooh, that guy's super low. So this is the range where it really kind of excels, because it's like there, like you just don't miss shots at that kind of range because it's so stable. I don't know why I was aiming below there. My aim assist got pulled right down. That was strange. Yeah, so at this kind of range, like this is where it's good. So if you're going to use this weapon successfully, I would say you need to make a build that kind of can excel in close range combat. You know, sort of your 15 meters. So maybe even potentially an intimidate build. The problem for me is in the current meta, with Lady Death being so strong with intimidate, I don't want to fight in that 10-meter range. What I really want to be doing is looking at the more like the 15-meter range, kind of the edge of its damage drop off when that starts to kick in. Oh, they're pushing straight there. So you've got to be just outside of intimidate range. Ugh, where was that guy? Yeah, just outside of intimidate range, but just inside 15 meters. So it's a very limited window. Like this range here. I mean, that's actually a really good test. So the damage drop off there was quite apparent. I was hitting 153k there. The damage, well, less than that in fact. So, but because the gun was so stable, I was able to land nothing but body and headshots there. I didn't actually miss, I don't think, a single bullet on that guy. And as a result, oh, excuse me, I actually won the fight. So, I don't know, it's hard to say really. It definitely feels really good to use, I will say that. I don't think it's a meta weapon. See, because I was moving a lot there. Maybe I'll even consider running this with Sharpshooter or Gunner, just for the extra handling or stability. My guess is they're going to be pushing to the right here pretty much any second now, so I've got to be really careful. Really want to expose my back here. Wait, did that guy dip or did he just hide? Yeah, so it's strange. You know, a lot of the times that extra weapon handling does kind of negate the lack of damage, and in a way this kind of feels the same, because you just land so many of your shots. So I was doing 105 up to 120k there. All right side.
Defender drone detected.
This guy's going to get shot in the back. So about 190k there, because I had my firewall shield out. Wait, is that a firewall shield? Wow, I'm not even using the firewall shield on firewall. Are you kidding me? But then Firewall gives you 10% additional damage anyway at that range. So that's kind of why I put Firewall on this build, because one, I was able to get on the mod that gives me the extra 10%, and two, you get the extra damage in that close quarters combat, and I feel that this is where the weapon is going to excel. But to be fair, even at long range, I'm starting to see why people like it. Because it misses so few bullets, you can kind of get away with a lack of damage. Yeah, it's nice. Ooh, didn't have my shield out there. Didn't think I needed it. Oh, I should have gone back into that without popping my med kit. I just wanted to see if I could finish that guy off. Yeah, so you know, this is more of a testing the weapon at different ranges than actually, you know, seriously playing the game. So I apologise for some of these plays here. To be fair, 17 million damage though. So all I can say is try it out. You know, I ask this in all of my videos, but I am curious to know if people do have a really good sort of build that they run with this. If you know, something that really kind of enhances the weapon's strengths and can still play relatively close range where it is strongest. You know, how do you feel it compares to the Lady Death meta, where to get that maximum damage you've got to be pretty close? That's kind of what I'm interested in knowing. I was quite impressed at how it performed at range there. I don't know if you were doing what I was, which was watching the damage numbers on the right side of my character, but you know, I noticed at one point I was doing less than 100k at range on my crits, and then at close range I was doing more like 150. So you know, that's a big difference in damage. But the way you got to think about it is, if somebody is at range and they haven't necessarily seen you, and you start getting tons of shots on them, even low damage shots, because your gun is so accurate that it can do that, all they're going to do is come into the fight with half health or low health. So, you know, if they're on a Lady Death build, they're going to have no health to start with, which means you're going to gun them down anyway, because you've got full health versus their low. Or if they're at another type of build, they're just going to have to sit back and use an armor kit. So, you know, having that high stability does mean that your ranged capabilities are quite high. Even if in a ranged 1v1 you might lose, I think the whole point of this build is to get that damage down before they do. So kind of take control of an area of the map and sort of burst them down as quickly as possible, because ultimately they're coming into the fight at a disadvantage, and because your stability is so high, it's really, really easy to land those downrange shots. That's my personal opinion anyway from the couple of games that I've tested this, so please do let me know what you think in the comments. I'm really curious to know, is there a lot of love for this weapon as there seems to be? Do people hate it? Is it a wasted talent? How'd you get on with it? Please let me know. Thank you very much for watching the video through to the end, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace!